we've seen good friends of ours trying to start shows, but they just hit a wall because that intimate conversations you have behind closed doors, it's hard to replicate it in an actual podcast consistently.
That's good. This is brought to you by Podcast Engineers. Podcast Engineers is one of the easiest ways to get your podcast edited and managed in a simple and sequential process. More about that later. If you don't know already, you are tuned in to Hustle Over Everything. This is the podcast where we receive stories, tips, and tactics from entrepreneurs who have done it. I'm Alex.
And I'm Owen Osinde.
And today we have a focus episode for you. We're doing a part 2 of our lessons in podcasting. We get told all the time, I want to be a podcaster too. I want to jump into podcasting. What tips do you have? What equipment should we use? XYZ, XYZ. So today we're going to talk about it, give you all the behind the scenes details of creating a podcast, launching a podcast, growing a podcast, and real mindset tips that you need to shift yourself with to have a better production style, all the et ceteras. You know what I'm saying?
Absolutely.
So before we get into that, though, we have the business tip of the week,
yes.
Hustle Nation, you know what I'm saying? So, Owen, how are you, bro? What's new?
What's new is the Raptors actually, I had a date night with myself last night.
All right, talk to me.
No missus, no nothing. Just the Manda, me with my single malt whiskey.
Okay.
At the crib, got some wings, and watched the Cavs versus the Raps. Home opener, bro. The squad is looking really good.
Really?
Yeah, we're looking good. We have a very compact squad. All around, everyone is on point, and we got the dub versus the Cavs. And the Cavs are touted as the up and comers of the East because they got all these they got Donovan Mitchell, who just got traded from the Utah Jazz. But it was a great night by myself.
Who do you think is the sleeper that we should be looking out for?
In the East or the West?
On the Raptors specifically.
I think Delano Banton.
Okay.
He's from Rexdale, actually.
Get out of here.
He's a Toronto man. Yeah.
Light-skinned dude.
Light-skinned dude.
Yeah.
Local lad, bro. Here on the Raps. So he's really, really good. I'm great length, 6'9" point guard, can shoot, can run really fast. I think he's going to be the up-and-coming point guard on the Raps.
He's a point guard at 6'9"?
Yeah.
Wow.
Everyone on the Raps is 6'8" and up.
Yeah.
There's only a couple sub 6 guys like Van Vliet and Malachi Flynn, but everybody else is at least 6'6", 6'7" and up.
Okay.
That's their strategy. They're very long. They're giants. They're legit raptors, bro.
Okay. Raptors have no arms though. Raptors with the big arms.
But they're crowding you everywhere you go, man. Imagine you beat OG, boom, you got Scotty right there.
Right.
Boom, you beat Scotty, you got Precious.
Yeah.
Boom, you beat Precious, you got Siakam. Boom, you beat Siakam, Van Vliet's there to help. And he's he's got clamps. You get me?
Okay.
So I was very proud to watch the game, and it was just a nice night for myself, bro. You get me? Just sipping on things, just marinating my thoughts, and enjoying the match.
Okay.
Yeah, Siakam got man of the match, so that was really cool. He looks really sprung. And what about you, bro?
What about me? Man, I've been tuning into the new music that just came out. Lil Baby just dropped.
What kind of music does Lil Baby make?
Lil Baby makes rap music. I've been tuning into a lot of Lil Baby music. I've also been going into my R&B bag lately. I've been listening to some new R&B artists, and I'm okay, there's some dope new people out that I'm excited to listen to and dive into that bag. That's what I've been up to lately, as well as, getting to the gym more. I've hired a trainer.
You've hired a trainer.
You know what I'm saying? I got a trainer on
Say
deck.
a word.
You know what I'm saying? So, yeah, bro, I'm excited to go crazy. So it's been.
Are you gonna be ready for December 1st, or
we'll see.
Is it looking bleak?
We'll see, man. We'll see.
Because you got a long way to go, bro. Just being honest with you.
Man, how much you think I weigh
right now?
Yeah.
226.
Not bad, not bad. So I'm coming up, but I'm not gonna talk. I don't talk during the game.
I'm the talker.
You're the talker, so I'll let you talk.
I like boasting to the wind.
You can try. I'm not the guy to talk during the win. I talk after, and I'm hey, you were talking during that game, so we'll see. We'll see. But yes, let's get into business tip of the week. Start things off.
Yes, let's do
You
that.
know, the business tip of the week this week, one of the things we are all doing now is using Canva. So I wanted to get into some behind the scenes, not even really behind the scenes. I wanted to get into some, tips that people can use for using Canva. And Canva just released a lot of new features that I find really interesting that we can take to our advantage. One of them is the new apps that they have. So one, you can draw on Canva now. You can also add Typeform to Canva now. And they also have like a website feature. So one thing I see, because I'm working with a lot of creators, I'm seeing a lot of UGC content creators use Canva to make their portfolio. But in order to reach out to them, you have to go to the email and then manually email them. But what they can easily do is use Canva with Typeform for free,
Yeah.
free 99, and have their Canva website go to Typeform and have people reach out to them through there, which is an easy way to get new leads come to their business. That's one pretty easy win. The next one is Epidemic Sound. A lot of people sleep on this. We actually slept on this a little bit.
We did, and then Nick actually, our videographer for our Durham project, actually brought it up.
Yeah.
Like, hey, I have like a free, not free account. He pays
for it.
He pays for it, but he has like a plethora of like options we can use for sounds.
Exactly. So a big gem is with Canva Pro, you get access to Epidemic Sound, which is about 15,000 royalty-free songs that you can add to your content. It's just with Canva Pro. It's a big secret that not a lot of people use to their advantage. And with TikToks right now and Instagram Reels copying TikTok and YouTube Shorts copying TikToks, having good audio and music behind your content is pretty important. It's quite important. So I'd suggest, leveraging that to get, the best out of your content, the best out of your Canva. So those are two easy tips that you can use when it comes to creating your Canvas going forward. All right, that's business tip of the week. Let's get to Hustle Nation, man.
Of course. Yo, you know who it is. It's Mr. Hustle Muscle on the mic, ready to give you the Hustle Nation tip of the week. And this week, we're going to be talking about the contrasting effect. So one of the books I've been reading actually rereading it is by Robert Cialdini called Influence, the Psychology of Persuasion.
Talk to me.
One of the key things is like when we're actually trying to persuade someone into something, there's a lot of things that go into their decision making. So one of the things as salespeople, as marketers, as entrepreneurs, what we can do is we can apply the contrasting effect principle. Essentially what this is like you have to walk your buyer through a journey where that the ultimate product that you want them to buy is higher than what you present them first. For example, like let's say if you sell me a $495 suit. This is one example he has. So let's say you got your client to buy a $495 suit. Let's just say $500 just for round numbers. Anything after they've said yes to a higher tier item, anything else you present them to that, any other item you present after that is going to seem like nothing. So for example, they buy a $500 suit. You say, hey, buy this $80 tie. When you compare $495 to $80, it doesn't seem like much compared to like, I just spent $500. I can toss in like a $20 bow tie, $40 like for clips for your ties and everything like that. So this is the way you add on to everything that you're doing. Even car salesmen do this too. They'll actually start you with like the higher item first. They get you to buy that. And then after that, you have the add-ons, which is like, hey, let's add on like windshield wipers for an extra $400. Let's add different color mats to like this, whatever. But the price is drastically different compared to like what you originally said yes to. So I remember actually doing this at the gym as well. And I didn't even know that we did it. I used to work at Good Life Fitness. I was working in sales. I was a fitness advisor. And the way we had presented our pricing, for example, when you decide to buy a gym membership and personal training, we actually hired a team of psychologists to really design this page. So when we flip it over to them and we present this pricing first, this pricing second, once they said yes to this gym membership and personal training package, it was easy to add little add-ons like, hey, do you want to extra $5 to get the tan? Do you want to do this? Do you want to do that? All these different add-ons increased our average order value from the sales that we'd make with each member. So I remember doing that. I was like, wow, like the way this is designed is like it's making my job easier. My commissions were higher and everything was just simpler because I had got them to say yes on the valuable item first. Everything after that was just gravy. And it just walked them through that journey. And it's just beautiful to see how our minds make decisions. So that is a Hustle Nation tip of the week. Whatever you're doing, whether you're an entrepreneur or you're looking to make your significant other make a decision on something, work using this principle to make them just to say yes to the one thing that you want them to do after. And you need like a figure to it, like maybe it's like a distance or whatever. Like, hey, maybe we can go to the beach next town. Like, I mean, you've already driven all the way here. Like maybe it's just like a 5-kilometer drive down the street. But ultimately what this does, it just anchors your way of thinking just to make you feel as if like, well, I've already gotten this far. What does it hurt to throw in an extra dollars to something that can add on to this? So that is a Hustle Nation tip of the week, everyone. We speak to a lot of business people, entrepreneurs, and this is something that you can do. You can even design it on your landing pages or your checkout items and whatever, what you present first, and then add those, little, hey, you might like this. Upsells, exactly.
Most definitely. Big gems, big gems. With that being said, let's hop into the podcast, the focus about podcasting.
Yes,
let's
sir.
Go. So, to kick things off, what do you think our biggest mistake in podcasting has been?
I think our biggest mistake in podcasting was not having a priority on investing in the right equipment. For example, the equipment with recording, we were recording on GarageBand for a whole year, not having the right microphones. And I think even using GarageBand, like it led us to using the Blue Yetis. Like there was no way we could have been using Shure mics, but at the time, Blue Yetis and GarageBand was just like a match together. Like there's no way, you had to use a USB mic and Blue Yeti was like the first affordable mic. So I think that was like one of the key mistakes we did because a lot of the great content we made was really overshadowed by just poor quality sound. And sometimes the Blue Yetis were not really consistent in terms of sound.
Are you talking about the in-person episodes or the virtual episodes?
I think the in-person episodes, more than anything. Yeah. But I think the virtual episodes were okay. Mm-hmm. Like the Blue Yetis are made for computer use. Mm-hmm. But in terms of like actually in person, it's a hit or miss just because there's a lot of factors that go into making that recording good, like connecting your Blue Yeti mic, making sure that every person in the room has a mic connected and it's like at the same sound wave.
Yeah.
And we've wasted so much time with guests, like 40 minutes, 45 minutes. I remember even us would sit there for hours trying to get a mic to work.
Yeah.
Like Alex would show up over here at 10 o'clock. We start pressing play at 11:30. And you're like, what the hell?
Yeah, it was insane. This because there's like the Blue Yetis are perfect for one-to-one episodes, as in you are recording into a camera, you're recording by yourself. Blue Yetis are perfect for that. Once you get to 1 to 3 people, 4 people, Blue Yetis are absolute horrible trash when it comes to recording multiple people. As soon as you go from in person or 1 to 2 people in the room, I highly suggest going with a Shure SM7Bs. You can do the Rode mics, anything of that nature. Get an XLR mic to go into a Zoom or a recording apparatus so you don't have to worry about, getting it into the computer right. You record it to its own thing, so it's a lot easier.
Yeah. And to give like some credence to what we've done since we recorded this episode, like, over the highlights of the past 2 years, we've gone to, we're giving like lessons in podcasting, but just to showcase like our stats, 144 episodes up to date, over 30,000 downloads so far. We actually peaked at 100, averaging 1,600 plays a month, which is just phenomenal.
30,000, like that number is interesting because like 30,000 downloads is only audio, but if we were to count video on top of that, it would be a lot more. It'd probably be like around 100,000 downloads, depending on if you count our YouTube, our TikTok, our Instagram Reels. It gets a lot bigger really quickly.
Yeah, you can see the reach expanding.
Yeah, the reach is crazy. I think our reach is probably about like 100K.
Yeah. But I mean, we've interviewed well-known celebrities, entrepreneurs. covered major events, reflecting from like where we were at, like when we made this, because we were like still stuck inside because of the pandemic, but from evolving past that, and you reflect about that, like what really sticks out to you?
I think we did a really good job of leveraging the pandemic to create relationships and get a foot in the door early. And one thing we did is get really good guests on while they had the time, because one thing I'm realizing, right, is that when you get a really good guest on, it elevates the brand, that even if you get a bad guest on next time, the brand still has a higher level because you interviewed that bigger guest. Like if we were to go on Breakfast Club tomorrow, like Breakfast Club isn't going to look any like lower for having us on.
Yeah.
They're still going to be like, oh, Alex and Owen were on Breakfast Club,
Yeah.
but it's not like Breakfast Club is slipping. They have Alex and Owen on. It's
Yeah.
just, they can have whoever on they want. So that's one thing I realized. I think we did really good is elevating the brand to that level. So now we have that versatility of interviewing whoever we want, and still having that space to get bigger guests and have smaller guests on without hurting the brand. I think that's one thing that's quite important. Also, I think establishing ourselves as more of thought leaders. Like, it's crazy. I was talking to somebody else, and we followed them on Instagram, and they were like, "Oh, Hustle of Everything follow us on Instagram," and I was like, "Wow, they really like look at us in that regard."
Yeah.
So that really meant something.
And compared to like where we were at when we're starting, because like it's easy to look at other people like who are podcasting. Did that make you feel as if like you're arriving, or did it still make you feel like you've got a long way to go?
A little bit of both. A little bit of both, because I think it gave us a bit of arriving in the sense of people are respecting the platform, and a little bit of a lot ways to go because we still are nowhere close to where we want to be, So that's kind of how I looked at it for sure. Yeah, man. And my thoughts when it comes to the biggest mistake, I think maybe not leveling up earlier. I think we should have done that earlier. Figuring out like a way to have a dope virtual pod, I think is the biggest challenge. I don't even think we have that down yet. Having a hard virtual pod, like one thing Andrew Schultz has really killed is doing virtual pods.
He's killed it.
Yeah, like figuring out how to do like a virtual podcast from his studio to somewhere else. I think he's done really well. But the thing is, he already has a studio, and finding a space that we can continuously use to where we have to set up and just leave it there. Shout out to Chid, and we were speaking with Chid at the Afros and Audios podcast festival conference. And one thing she did is she created a podcast studio in her basement. So everything's set up there. She doesn't have to move anything. It's a whole studio with like lighting and everything. So all she has to do is go there, sit down. If she has a guest, she can invite him in and they sit down and have a conversation. If you're a podcaster, think about doing that. Think about, taking a room in your house, in your home, or even a cinema room if you have a condo and turning that into a studio.
Yep.
Those are some of the things that we've learned are easy ways to get a podcast to do that no one's really using or, that you can continuously go to.
Yeah. And also too, like, I think one thing I've learned is you never know what can come out of just going and making a podcast, because early on, right, your stats are very deceiving in a sense of, yes, you can think of like, oh man, this episode did not perform well, but by consistently putting out shows, it actually builds your catalog up, which leads you to many opportunities which you cannot foresee happening. We've had many opportunities which we've been invited to. We were hesitant because we felt like, we've really put in a lot of work, and to really go do this event, I don't know if we should really go on about it, but you know what? One is better than zero. Right? One is better than zero. Like, every opportunity builds up to the next opportunity. Like, for example, we had David Meltzer, who's like he's like a well-known entrepreneur. Like, he's up there and creating content, like with the Gary V's and Tony Robbins, the who's of people. Shout out
David.
And we just by consistently putting out shows and just building the brand slowly by slowly, we had an opportunity at, like, did he reach out to us or did you reach out to him?
It was a combination of both. I reached out to him via email, but then he reached out to us during the Collision app.
Yeah.
So it might have been like he saw us via email and reached out through Collision app, or maybe he just
Exactly.
did it through Collision app. Who knows?
Who knows? But you cannot get to that place where you're interviewing those David Meltzers until you actually solidify the brand, you solidify your content, you solidify consistency, and you actually build a solid foundation for your podcast by creating like more of like a cohesion and everything that you talk about, which is going to attract those David Meltzers. So if David sees that, he's saying, you know what, this is a great podcast. They've done a great job with the branding. Why not go on it? Like, why not expand my reach? Because if these individuals keep producing these podcasts, like eventually it's going to get to somewhere like where it's respectable. So, and that's like one of the things that's going to lead us to the next thing is like, we're talking about podcasting lessons, right? We're going to start with why, right? One of the things that you brought up earlier was that, you know, everybody wants to start a podcast, but why? Have you seen that clip with that like pastor? It's like, why? Why? So like, ask yourself why, you know, why do you want to go on this endeavor? You know, it's difficult starting a podcast. You know, the optics of building a show, or having a show is very deceiving. Like if we post this clip out, it's like, oh, these guys just grab two mics and they are sitting there just chatting it up and everything. It looks so good. And it's like this comforting feeling you get from watching people do it, which makes people, oh, it'll be cool to do that. But you don't know the baggage that comes from putting that video out. For example, and that audio out. It's like, okay, you got to take that audio out. You got to go edit it. You got to go take that video. You got to edit that. Then you got to sit down and listen to every single part of that video to find out the best clips. Or even look out for moments in the conversation which you can piece together to create a clip that can actually get engagement. All these different things. And also, before you said, you know, one stat we brought up last time, I'm going to bring up again, is the average podcast takes 10 episodes, doesn't make it past 10 episodes.
Say it again.
The average podcast doesn't make it past 10 episodes. You know, why is that?
Because consistency is hard and expensive. That's the other thing. Consistency is expensive. It costs to be consistent. Either it costs you money, costs you time, or costs you relationships to be consistent. So people have to sacrifice that to be consistent. So you have to really recognize that one of the other is going to have to go in order for you to be consistent. I think you have to spend money to get everybody in order so you can batch content correctly and have people on the back end to batch that content. And we will talk about batching shortly. But that's one of the big things. It costs to be consistent.
Yeah. And also like if you're starting a podcast, you have to decide like what is it that you're going to be talking about. Like one of the things that we see a lot is a lot of people want to just take their WhatsApp conversations with their friends and make that into a show because you're having so much good banter. You think this is going to translate into an actual platform, which never really ends up happening. We've seen good friends of ours trying to start shows, but they just hit a wall because that intimate conversations you have behind closed doors, it's hard to replicate it in an actual podcast consistently.
At scale.
It's kind of like one of those guys like, you know, man, they really killed it in college hoops, but can they translate that to the NBA and actually shine in the NBA? Can it translate to an actual platform on video? And okay, what's your comfort level on the microphone? What's your comfort level on camera?
Yeah.
These are different things that you really have to factor in, and producing that in a way that shines the personalities of everyone, that is what's really hard to replicate from like just like a finger typing chat and trying to do that on or whatever, or even just like hanging out with the boys too, talking, like having these chats at the bar or having drinks, all these different things. It's super difficult to really translate that into a show. So start with what's the subject you're going to be talking about? Is it business? Is it just comedy? Is it lifestyle? And decide which angle you're going to put onto your show. If it's comedy, like what kind of comedy is it? Is it dark humor? Is it just just banter? And what's going to make you stick out from other banter shows? If it's like a business podcast, what's going to make it stand out from other business shows? Is it going to be focused on entrepreneurship? Like one of the things we focus on is we focus on the people who've done it and the vulnerable aspect of it. We're trying to remove like the glamour side of being an entrepreneur and actually showcasing the cold hard truth of actually building a business, which has brought a lot of people some hope because you know what? Hey, I can do that. If that's what it took for you to really do it, and if I know what I'm getting into, it actually creates more entrepreneurs, real entrepreneurs, than just fake entrepreneurs who just want to build a business because it's sexy and it's the right thing to do.
Big facts. One thing I would say as well, if you're starting a podcast, is what segments is going to be through the pod. Are you just going to rant throughout the entire thing? Are you going to have segments? Are you going to have friends on? And with those friends, how are you going to manifest new conversations? Is it going to be leveraging the news cycle and having what comes in the news come to your podcast, and then you're clipping up those pieces of content that you're talking about in that news segment of your show, and having that be placed on social media for people to come to your podcast, listen to the extended version of that. So that's a big piece. And also the production behind that, you know. One of the big things we talked about in episode 1 or part 1 is Airtable. And that's a big thing, and that's something that we're super passionate about, is getting our Airtable right, because that really helps us stay in line with the topics, the people we're getting on the podcast in terms of guests, the production side. How is the podcast being produced once it's created? What happens after it's created? Are you sending it to an editor? Are you sending it to a social media manager to post it on socials? How are you getting the podcast from actual recording to that distribution platform?
Yeah. And one of the things that you brought up there is like, I want to highlight here is how podcasting has changed.
Let's get into it.
So you brought up a great point there, where podcasting before used to just be about, I'm going to go on Apple Podcasts. You know, Apple transformed podcasting. They were the first people to have the podcasting app, even on the iPod Classic, right? Classic had podcasts, iPod Nano came out, iPod Touch, everything. They just created the podcasting industry in itself. So before, it was super easy to go and explore a podcast you've never heard before because it's in the entrepreneurship category. I'm going to explore all these different entrepreneurship podcasts and have the patience to do it. But now, no one has the patience anymore. Everybody wants something quick, something they know, something that is tried and true, and they're going to be willing to go and listen to it. So, for example, the way your podcast is getting discovered these days is way different than the way we used to go and search up different pods because, as I said, you have the patience for it. So one of the key things now is switching your mindset into seeing your show as an audio show and making it into a clips show. So we're in the clips game now. So you might have the audio platform, which is actually like your pillar content, but the pieces of content you create from that show is what's going to allow you to get discovered. So it's very difficult for someone to go on Spotify or iTunes and discover Hustle Over Everything because Apple is only promoting the top 10, top 40 podcasts that everybody's listening to because they want to bring people to the platform. So unless your show is getting a lot of reviews, a lot of ratings, it's super difficult for you to rise up in the Apple or Spotify algorithm because A, you're not a celebrity, you're not an influencer, you did not sign a long-term deal with any of these platforms, so they have no interest in promoting you. But if their algorithm is telling them, hey, this is a show people are listening to, then you really stand no chance unless you create the armor of miniature content around your show, which will lead people back to your podcast. For example, we had this one clip of Kevin Samuels, which went crazy on YouTube. And there was like a period of time where we just kept getting comments after comments after comments on this clip. And it was simply Alex and I debating on like Kevin Samuels' message. Alex's point of view did not really sit well with the viewers who came across this clip. But what that did was that it actually brought back a whole lot of listeners in a week period because they went and played back our old catalog. So you see the power of good clips is that it's going to allow people to actually stick to your show, discover it, and perhaps subscribe because they see value in it.
Yeah. One thing that I want to say to change your mindset with podcasting is a podcast is a piece of wood. a slab of wood. Follow me here. A slab of wood could be a piece of furniture, a chair, a table, a cup. It's whatever you want it to be. So you can make that podcast be a clip, a audio clip that only goes on audio platforms, a long form version, a YouTube video, a TikTok, a reel, a short, a portfolio item, a review of an event. There's multiple ways that you can leverage your podcast to serve a specific purpose. So having that in mind of how you're going to use your wooden slab is extremely important. And even thinking about ways you can repurpose content to serve your purpose as well is important as well. Because, we tweeted out our event from Collision, and that led to us getting our new deal with Invest Durham. So that's one of the things that's super important is how are you reusing your podcast?
Yeah, how you're repurposing it. And there's ultimately so many things that come out of just creating that content. There's like the relationships you build from it, the personal brand that you get from building a podcast, and the subject matter expertise you become on that specific podcast. But, that's how podcasting has changed over the past 6-8 years. But let's start in actually building a show, like in actually talking about brand. And, we're going to speak at a conference this week. This week is October 20th, so we'll be in Philadelphia this week. And we're going to be speaking about branding, right? One of the great things that we've heard about our show is that a lot of people admire the brand that we've built behind Hustle Over Everything. So let's take some time here to really talk about building a brand of a show, because your brand is what people say about you. But what you can do is you can actually lay the foundation of creating a great brand around your show that's going to allow people to remember you. It's going to allow you to expand into new opportunities and et cetera. So when we're talking about a brand, a podcast is now like a media brand. It's not just a podcast. It's encompassing everything, because you're doing audio, you're doing video, you're also doing written work as well too. It's creating a lot of different stems which you can break into. But to start with a great brand, you have to start first with picking a great name, right? What is the name of the podcast? Does it reflect what you're going to be talking about? And this is one of the challenges I faced early on is when I was getting into podcasting, I started with the Owen Osinde podcast, which is not really the best thing to do because I'm not some major influencer. I'm not some celebrity. So why would people go towards listening to Owen Osinde unless you're my friend or you know me? And what does Owen Osinde talk about? So this is one of the challenges I faced. But ultimately switching it to Hustle Over Everything, everybody knows what hustle is all about. What are you hustling for? People know that I'm hustling to get better at something. I'm hustling to get more than what I have. And I'm doing it above all costs, but not in a toxic way, but just to really get myself to the next level. So picking a great name, keep it short, make it unique to you, and also keep it so it has scalability, right? So scalability is something that when we talk about Hustle Over Everything, we can scale that name into many different aspects. We can go into events, we can go into, we can do courses, we can do a lot of different things. We're not really restricted towards just one specific thing, which I've seen other podcasts have. Is you can do that, but it doesn't really fit what you're trying to do. So you're kind of boxed in. What's your take on that?
No, I completely agree. And just like I was saying with the wooden slab, it's very important, Also, I'd say when it comes to being a podcaster, you're not just a podcaster. You are now a business owner. You now own an entity with IP, and you have to protect that IP, protect the level that you're consistently giving out. As well to that, you are now trying to make money off of that, or in order to have it be a continuous thing. So you need to be able to, find advertisers for it. And if not advertisers, then what product are you selling to the people?
Yes.
It could be merch, T-shirts, et cetera, actual productions, your product or service that you manifest through the podcast, the people coming in, and you can use it as advertising space for yourself to fulfill your own product or service. So,
it's just the aspect of versatility,
Yep.
Like what is that you're going to be doing more than just a podcast? So don't limit your brand towards just like thinking it's going to be a show. Have a bigger image, have a bigger vision behind it. Start with the end in mind. And one of the key things I wanted to cover here is this aspect of reverse order. So what I mean by reverse order is the first time you're actually starting a show is you really want to think about a couple things that's really going to dictate how you're going to shape the brand of your podcast. So think about the guest. Why would a guest want to come on that show? What visuals, what quality are you putting out for them to be even remotely be interested in coming on a show? We get a lot of inbound requests from people, a lot, who want to be like, hey, we think we'll be great for your show. We think we'll be great for your show. But the reason that we have that is because when you search up Hustle Over Everything, you go into our platforms, you see there's a lot of cohesion in everything that we do. Every post is the same. There's a website. There's consistent branding around it. There's many different things that we offer in terms of merch. You can check out our YouTube page. Everything is in cohesion and everything is synchronistically aligned with whatever the Hustle Over Everything brand is about. And this starts with day one, right? So day one is this is the brand. We're going to take this thing. We're going to position it like this, and we're going to start building on top of it. So now when a guest or whoever wants to come on board, they can search it up. Okay, would I want to be on the show? Yeah, like the clips look good. They post these kind of clips. I can get value from getting those clips from them. I can take a little tit piece. I can put that on my LinkedIn. So these are certain things that you want to be doing all the time to be able to really create that image from day one. Also, just like the sound quality too, you don't have to go all the way out and like buy like maybe TV production equipment, but as we're saying earlier, investing in solid equipment, which is going to make your podcast sound good.
Yeah.
And also the imagery and the tone of your podcast from day one has to be really established, because even if you're a small show, you never know if you ask a guest to come on the show, they might say yes, but you might not even be prepared because you're like, oh yeah, I mean, we don't really have a website. We don't have a catalog where you can see our shows. You don't see our show notes or whatever. These things need to be defined from day one. So think about that. Like, what's your show going to look like in the end? And what can you do right now to establish that from the genesis of your podcast?
Yeah. Some tools you can use there. You can always get an easy website with Anchor. That creates an easy website. Not necessarily one you might want to keep, but it's an easy starting and jump off point where you can show people that you have archive of podcast episodes.
Yeah.
Another competitor to Anchor that's not so bad is Captivate.fm. We used them for a bit, but it wasn't as much of a fit for us. Another one, of course, is Buzzsprout and PodPal, which is Black-owned. Shout out to PodPal. They actually just, I think they raised money. You know, it's funny they're Black-owned and they got a brand deal with Hennessy.
Say a word.
Yeah, man, it was really cool. I was like, yo, that's so fire.
That's unreal.
That's hilarious. But shout out to PodPal. They're another option that you can use as a podcast platform. So those are some things you can use. Now, let's keep the ball rolling. Next on the list that we have is we talked about equipment, show planning and organization, CRM, talk. You know, that's Owen's specialty right there. You know.
Yeah.
Talk to us, bro.
So you have to see your podcast as an overall organization, right? And at the heartbeat of that is your show structure. And this is where I love to do. Like, I really enjoy getting deeper into the nitty-gritties of just like extreme organization to the letter. So as we mentioned before, we have a CRM of like every podcast we've done, we've recorded, and all the future shows we're going to be doing, broken down to the descriptions, the timestamps, the links to the Google Drive where we post the raw and finished audio. Everything in this CRM is like really organized for prospective guests that we have reached out to, and like the calls we've had with them, the show notes, the discovery calls we've had with them. And what this does is everybody within the team has access to this nucleus of where we actually operate the show from. So as I was talking about here, Airtable is the most effective way to really organize your show. We personally use Airtable, but you can also use things like Google Sheets that you can create multiple tabs with it. But Airtable is something that you can actually really make it into your own with just all the different things you can do with it, and make it really organized for show prepping, show organization, and actually creating a catalog of every show that you've done. And one of the things I also want to talk about is booking guests. There's an actual artistry towards booking guests. What are some frustrations you've had with having calls with guests and getting them on the show? Or even lying.
Bro, why are you telling me your aunt died to get out of the show? Bro, this said I don't want to do it no more.
Yeah.
Listen, I love a good no.
Yes.
I'm happy to get a no. Hey, I don't want to do this. No worries.
Yeah.
Move on.
Yeah.
But, yo, my uncle died, and I'm sorry, man, I just can't make it. Man, I'm so sorry to hear that. Like, your uncle died? Wow, that's super unfortunate. You know? But then to use that as a curve to get out of the show is a weird move. That's like, why are you using death to get out of it? It's not that serious. If you don't want to be in the podcast, listen, that's your loss, not ours.
Yeah.
You're missing out on free content. You're missing out on the opportunity to possibly go viral. So, hey.
Hey, you know, that's another thing too, is like, I think from our position, we'll be on a call with someone and we feel this pressure, especially when we actually have discovery calls with women, is they come to us, they say, hey, I want to be on the show, and like, let's have a discovery call. And they might not be really aligned with what we want to do, but we personally like them as people and what they've accomplished. And there's this difficult part of just saying no to them because you feel like, that kind of stings, you know?
How am I going to say no to this woman?
Exactly. And I know I'm going to see you. You're a local. I'm going to see you at events. And there's going to be a lot of side eye. You get me? But with dudes, it's extremely easy to say, Ashley.
Hey, yo, tighten up, my guy.
Tighten up.
Hey, yo,
it's
come
like, yo,
back later.
Launch that business first, bro, and then you can come on the show.
Yeah.
So how difficult have you had it to say no to certain prospective guests who we've had a discovery call with?
I've had difficulty in that regard as well. I think it is a bit tougher to have, especially if it's altruistic.
Well, what makes it difficult?
An altruistic business. You know, if it actually means something, it actually serves a purpose, it's a bit tougher to have them on because you know that it might not serve the audience as well. Y'all might not want to hear from them in that regard. You know, it's like a level between gatekeeping and, you know, protecting the brand, you know. And that kind of makes me think, like, what else can we do? Like, can we have another segment for, you know, more like smaller brands, more people who are just starting off, you know, testing out ideas? Because I'm like, something you should have. I don't want to like just be kicking people off, you know.
It feels whack because it's like for example, like when we first started and we reached out to a specific entrepreneur here in the city, they were like, yeah, I'm down to come on the show, but then they're like, oh, how many listens do you get a podcast? I was like, yeah, we get about like 60 plays. So this is like back in like 2019. It's like, yeah, Ashi, I'm gonna be away in Texas. Let me know I'll let you know when I'm in town, or you know, whenever I'm back, just hit me up again. I was like, and I was like, hey, Al, bro, he said this, so maybe we should hit him up. And then you're like, nah, bro.
That's a curve.
That's a curve. That's a curve.
Yeah.
So you're going to get curved a lot when you're actually trying to book high-tier guests. And I think when you're in these calls, you have to learn to say no, because this is the brand of a podcast becomes more than you. It becomes, you have an obligation to yourself, to your listeners, to your future guests, into creating a consistent product each and every single time. So when you have a lot of discrepancies with the messaging and the guests that come on, your guests are going to start, your listeners are going to start noticing, right? They're like, why did you have this guy when you just had so-and-so on? You know what I'm saying? So as a person, when you're on these discovery calls, you got to be able to cut the crap when you see it. You can be like, hey, we really like what you've done. But I don't think it's a great fit this time. And what Alex and I have done, we've established a good guy and bad guy personality. So if it's Alex's lead, I'll be the one to say no. If it's mine, Alex will say no, just because I don't want to ruin his relationship with the person that he knows. So he looks, and then he can piggyback off me. I was like, yeah, I kind of agree here. Like, I think it's great what you've done, but at least he doesn't have to deal with the blowback and the blood on his hands.
Yeah. Honestly, I'm like, should we put this part in? Because I'm like,
It's a true.
We're giving the real secret sauce right now.
Bro, it's the lessons of podcasting,
Yeah,
right?
it's lessons of podcasting. Y'all are getting the real truth of how we vet guests and say no to guests.
Yeah,
because it is a tougher lane, you know.
Everybody wants to be on a podcast. Everybody wants to come sit on the couch with cameras, with lights, with a whole production team in the back and talk about their business. And it's difficult when they personally know you and they have a business and you're like, hey, nah, bruv, or hey, nah, girl, like, I don't think you're ready. But you really love them as a person. But it's like, I have a business to protect. I have an obligation to other people that I have to like put their needs first before putting my friendship like with you on the show, you know? So, but ultimately what you can do is like when you're looking to create, build relationships is reaching out to guests is you can start creating templates of different emails. So one thing I've done is I've created an email template which talks about the show, why they should come on the show, which is something I personalize to them. And then the intro paragraph is who we are and why we think that, you know, and why I reached out to them. And I use this as a plug and play each and every single time. It scales my outreach and it makes me look very intentional with the messaging that I've written. Shout out to Eva Wong too. She mentioned that in the way I reached out to her is the reason she came on the show, because like she's the CEO of Borwell.com, which is like a credit checking app.
One of the biggest fintech companies in Canada.
In Canada, right? And he's like, yeah, like the reason I reached out is because I really loved your email and the way you wrote it. You're very personal. You're a customer of ours and you spoke about it, and which like got me really excited for coming on the show. I was like, wow, you know, it pays to be intentional. It pays to really pay attention to details and get that messaging out.
So I want to unpack that a little bit, because you just said a template, but what you didn't mention was that you also customize on top of the template.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
And that's very important. Every time I've reached out to somebody, it's always custom. There's always a custom portion of that email that you have on top of it, you know, and I think that's super important. And the way to even make that faster is to have a keyboard shortcut. You know what I'm saying? So you can go into either your MacBook and create a keyboard shortcut where you have a hotkey to create that shortcut that has a template on it. You add the custom parts that are actually true, something you actually researched and identify personally with that person, and have that in the email. So it's both a template and custom. Send off. You can do that at scale at a faster rate and close more people on your podcast.
Yeah. It's in this day and age where everyone's getting bombarded with messaging. People like feeling special. You got to do the research. You've got to go in different shows they've been on and say something that really seems very genuine from what you believe, and mention it to them. Hey, I noticed that you did this. Hey, I noticed that you do like that. Hey, the reason I want you on my show is because I really admire the way you really were struggling in your business and you made it through by doing this particular thing that I read on this thing. I think you should come and share that with us. I think our audience will get a lot of value from that. So when they see that attention to detail and the digging, it flatters them and it gets them really excited. And hey, you know what? This might be worth my time. If they desire me like this, I'm going to go show up and give them myself and like what I've done. We've done this with a lot of people too, and it's really paid dividends, and it's built great relationships after that.
Most definitely. One thing to add on that I'm doing right now, I'm testing out voice notes. Because when people hear your actual voice with the energy behind it, when it comes to speaking about something they did, it makes it a lot more personal when it comes to reaching out. So I've done that a few times and had some wins, some L's, you know, but I'm testing it out, and so far it's pretty good. So I can suggest that, but I'm not going to say it's a foolproof way of getting people to your show.
Yeah. And speaking about voice notes, one of the things I also want to talk about is your personality on the show.
Yes.
You know,
let's get into that. That's very important.
The personality of the show is the product. Like, we are a product. Like, Alex is the product, Owen is a product. And key things I want to cover here is energy levels, speech, rehearsal, or laid back. So when we talk about energy levels, you have different energies in a podcast.
Your rehearsal?
Yeah, I want to get into this. So rehearsal in a sense of is this a podcast that is really scripted in a sense of, so today this to happen is this, and that. So there's
Gotcha.
different personalities you can have.
Gotcha.
When they know that you're coming on the show, they know like, okay, this is going to be a very kind of like I'm reading off the news type of podcast, and they know not to expect any personality from you because it's going to be cut and dry. If it's laid back where you're actually showing the personality of who you are, but you alternate different energy levels, that's also part of the brand too. So you have like, for example, like let's say Flagrant 2, these guys are comedic. They're high in energy. They're like, oh my God, like let's say if you listen to Flagrant 2, this is Andrew Schultz and Akash Singh, they're very high energy. Then you go to Earn Your Leisure and it's very laid back and it's like very like monotone.
All right, guys. All right.
Yeah, exactly.
Yo, Rashad loves the all right.
All right,
Shout
all right.
out to Earn Your Leisure.
Yeah.
All right, guys. It's going to be a cool conversation. You know what I'm saying?
You have to define who your show character is going to be. And you have to stick to that because this is what everybody's expecting to come and listen to. For example, right, is if Alex was to switch up the intro in every single show, people will notice. If I stopped saying my last name, part of the intro and the outro, and saying, have a great week, everybody, everybody's going to notice that. If I stopped like with my outrageous takes sometimes, people will notice that. Everybody comes to your show to get a different side of you, which is still authentic to who you are, but never try to be someone else that you're not because your audience is going to notice your way you're talking is not really congruent with who you've been talking like before. So your personality on the show is a brand. It's like part of the brand, and don't try and be like talking, like cracking jokes, and it's just like seems forced. So what's your take on that, bro? Like, is that true? Am I speaking like?
No, you're speaking 100% facts. And going to your Andrew Schultz point, one thing that's notable with that as well is like how Andrew is the A mic, you know, and Akash is B mic. And, you know, Alex is like a C mic and has background noise with his laughing and adding that in. And he knows to add that in you know, when it comes to the podcast because it adds a little extra to it, you know. And Mark Gagnon as well, having a little punchy 1-2 every now and then adds to the formula of the show, you know, and making sure everyone knows that that's their role is important. You know, because if Akash is starting to talk more than Andrew's going to be like, yo, like, what, Wagwan? It was good. It's going on. So hopefully you guys listen to the show so you know what I'm talking about. But that's one thing that's important too, knowing like where the different aspects are. Because if you look at Joe Budden, you know, that's another thing that like he does A mics and things of that nature and balances between the three of them. And Angela Yee on Breakfast Club, even though it's a radio show, you can see the difference between Angela Yee on her podcast versus Angela Yee on the Breakfast Club. It's two different people, even though it's the same woman.
Yeah, right? 100%. It's on ours. It's I like taking the controversial route. You like being like the peacekeeper,
you know,
and
tactical
and looking at me when I'm like about to, yo, guys, there's been like a lot of shows like where, let's be honest here, bro.
Let's keep it a buck.
Let's keep it a buck, right? So I have like, you know, I'm a very conservative guy.
Are we gonna talk about? Are we gonna talk about?
Yeah,
we're gonna talk about it. Go ahead.
Let's talk about it,
bro.
right? So I'm a very conservative guy. I don't know how long you've been listening to the show, but conservative, traditional. I like thinking a certain way, and I kind of find the new ways of like doing things a little bit like, what kind of world are we living in, right? So I have different views and takes on roles and gender roles, I guess I can say that. Politics, you know. But there's one time.
You sure you want to talk about it?
Well, I mean, this is podcasting lessons. This is like a lesson we've learned, right?
This is a lesson we've learned, for sure.
So we had one guest, and it was very hard to really understand which
Hold up, Just take a step back.
Do you want to tee it up? And then because I think outside, you know, me being the one in the mistake, outsider, you sitting like across from me, what did you see? And you kind of warned me before, and I didn't
I
listen.
warned you before. So we had a guest on, and our close circle knows about this. We had a guest on that, is a man. This is the lie. This is the back half. So if you're rocking with us, you're rocking with us. So you're here. Let's get into it.
Yeah, this is why, like, hey, if you're gonna not rock with us after, like, cool. But one thing you're gonna get from us is,
Keeping the buck.
so honesty.
We have this guest on. This guest is more of a flamboyant male on. And before he comes on, I have a conversation with Owen on our way to the ABM conference. And I'm like, yo, this gentleman is a flamboyant gentleman, but he identifies as straight. That was the point I had, and I'm like, hey, listen, this is that. So be aware. Now, in the episode, I'll tee it off to you. What happens?
So in the episode, he walks in as predicted, as we saw in his IG, very flamboyant, colorful, the way you walk, whatever. And when you see this type of person, whoever you are, it's easy to assume that they might be of a sexual orientation of, like, let's say.
They might be on the LGBTQI spectrum.
Thank you. See, this is why I need you.
Peacekeeper.
Because I was about to, like, talk reckless again. But so we sit down, we start recording the show. We're, like, getting to know his background, yada, yada, yada. It gets to a point, like, where he's talking about how, he used to dress and how his father helped him dress a certain way. And, me, I have the presence of mind to ask him this. So I asked him, yeah, it's great that you do that. So are you gay or are you bisexual? Is that what I asked him?
That's what you asked.
Exactly. I asked him, are you gay or are you bisexual? And at that moment, he looked at me in the show, and I look over at Alex, and I look over at our boy Rodney, who's in the background, banning the camera and the
Shout
audio.
out to Rodney. Yo, you had a good laugh after.
He had a good laugh after. And show keeps rocking, right?
No, whoa.
No. It rocks for a bit, and then I catch myself, and I was like, hey, by the way,
that's not hold up. Go back. Pull up. So he asks if he's gay or bisexual, and he says, you can tell he's like caught off guard by that, taken aback, and is like, neither. And Owen's like, what does that mean?
Oh my God, can't believe I asked that.
What does that mean? And he's like, I'm straight. And he's like, oh, okay. And then
you could tell I was shocked.
Yeah, and then I come in and divert the conversation, and then we go from there. And that's how that part went. And then after, go ahead.
After,
I catch yourself.
I catch myself. I was like, hey, by the way, like, I didn't mean it like that. I was just genuinely asking. And I was genuinely asking.
You were genuinely asking.
I wasn't trying to diss bro. I was not trying to, like, ask him or anything. I was just legit, trying to remember, like, what is this guy? Because when Alex told me this, we were, like, in the car. We were going to ABM. I was, like, in the back of the car. His girl is driving the car. And I'm like, oh, yeah, by the way, yo, bro, we got this guy coming on. Remember, this. I'm like, yeah, whatever. It's so far away. I'm like, I don't need to know that right now. Let's just go to the conference. Let's go do the show and actually kill it. We can talk about having this podcast later. So that slipped my mind. And then I try to play like ignorant. It's like, oh, you did? You told me that? Alex told me, and I just refused to, like, legit marinate that information. But
so when you asked that question, you were curious, eh?
I was curious. Bruh, I was curious. I was curious. So yeah, I mean, that's one of the things about, like, booking guests and everything. But I think right now we got to talk about editing the show.
As you mentioned at the top of the episode, Podcast Engineers is the top premier space to get your podcast edited. I highly suggest working with Dave. Let's talk about Dave for a quick second, because Dave is the MVP.
Yes, Dave V.
Yes. Oh, wait, Dave Visaya.
Dave Visaya.
Yes.
So Dave Visaya is an amazing person to work with. I mean, ever since we started working together, he's been very patient with us. There's been a lot of mishaps and ups and downs, and really understanding the flow of how we want to execute each and every show. But he's been there rocking steady with us, really giving us like the best product that he and his team can possibly provide virtually from the level of communication we have. So the sound, the quality, the videos you see, that's all Dave and his team editing the podcast. And I personally enjoy working with Dave just because he is very understanding. He gets what you're trying to do, and he goes above and beyond to get every single piece of information he can possibly get from you to create the best product that he can create for you and your audience.
Most definitely. Dave has worked with bigger podcasts than ours. He's worked with Bigger Pockets, which is one of the biggest business podcasts in the industry. So he's very well experienced. So we highly suggest him. One of the things that was a lesson for us is actually working with a podcast editor. And I highly suggest when you're organizing your Airtable, have that frame of mind of this is being sent to somebody virtually, so they need to have the proper instructions of how to edit that podcast. That was one of the biggest lessons and ups and downs that we had. Not in the sense of a knock to Dave, it's more of a knock to us because we hadn't had that experience before. So I would highly suggest having the frame of mind of how is this editor going to receive the podcast, whether it be via Google Drive link or in the Airtable where you're posting that, and what are the direct, specific instructions that will contribute to that. And Dave has been a godsend in receiving that and having the frame of mind of how to edit the podcast, adding in different clips sometimes to really help. So I highly suggest him. You can hit the link in our description below to, get in contact with Dave and tell him that we sent you.
Yeah. And one thing I also want to add is that he is very collaborative. Like, so for example, if you're looking to start a show, he's going to work with you no matter what level you're at and no matter what type of product you're going to create. He'll actually walk you through how to be organized and saying, hey, this is how we want to organize the files. Put them, and this is something that we're working towards, like compressing our videos and compressing our audio to send it to him. So he'll walk you through like the tools, all the different frameworks that you should implement. He's going to really make it easy for you to really execute your show, and he'll even post it for you. He'll take your description, he'll do everything. He'll post it on YouTube, post it on Apple, Spotify, everything you do. All you have to do with podcast engineers is record your show, compress your files, put it within the frameworks that you have it in, have like a Excel sheet with all the upcoming dates you want this podcast to drop, and they'll take care of everything. It's super easy. I mean, take that in. Record, upload, they post it. Edit it with clips and everything that you want. And they're very, very fair in their pricing.
Very affordable. So once again, hit the link in our description and get on a call with Dave right now. Open up a new tab and get that done.
Yes, if you're serious about podcasting, I highly recommend podcast engineers. For real. I don't know where we would be without them. It'd be a struggle, but I'm just like very blessed and thankful for Dave and his team. So definitely check them out.
Let's talk about the transformation. Before Dave, I had to take a whole day off of work, off of everything, to edit the podcast, to try and get it out. And that was a struggle.
Yeah, I don't know how you do it.
That was a struggle.
Also got a shout out to you, man. I mean, you're the editor, like just editing things. And I was like, wow. Because I've edited the pods like many times. And it sucks.
Yeah, it sucks.
It sucks.
My toxic trait is wanting perfection, like on everything, and that's impossible. And editing a podcast to try and get it to perfection is a daunting task.
Yeah,
I've been spending hours editing, and I'm like, listen, I'm so happy to give it to Dave. We talked to Royston about this. Shout out to Royston. And there's one thing that we can both relate on. Having an editor is super key. So once again, hit up Dave, and you'll thank us most definitely. All right, now let's get back into it.
Yeah, so one of the key things we're talking about here with editing actually is it's like having a brand too, like in your sounds and chimes. Like we can have this conversation right now, but yeah, we're talking. But integrating chimes and sounds, it creates like the show,
experience.
Right? So for example, we have like a money counter sign, which transitions from different topics, or it's like from creating the hook, then transitioning to a different topic, which is more of another hook. And it's very on brand because the money counter sign is like, it's tied to entrepreneurship and business. So what are your chimes and sounds? It's like if you have a mystery show, do you want to add like suspenseful music behind it. That's going to allow you to build your show. What other things you can add with sound there too?
I would say the whooshing sound sounds easy to think, but no, I go on YouTube, find the whooshing sounds, download that, add it to the pod, and have a folder that's just for audio branding. That's important. Where you can just have all the audio brands, so when you send it to an editor, this is another thing that happens with editors. You got to have that saved so you can send that to them. Like, all right, this goes here, and there's a crescendo that happens between the whoosh sound into your actual audio, so it kind of makes it seamless from the whoosh into your audio. So those are some of the things that are very important. Having a folder of audio branding things, so you don't have to continuously find it. You just have one specific place for that audio branding.
Yeah, and let's talk about show length as well too. Show length is key.
Yeah.
I mean, we had different variations of show lengths. We had an hour and a half, then we tried a half an hour, which people kind of enjoyed as well too. I think half an hour we did out of necessity because we were strapped for time. But I think doing a half-hour show, one of the key benefits is that you really wrap up everything you're saying quickly.
Yeah.
And you have another person who also needs to talk as well. So you're like, okay, I can't talk too much because I know they got to get into this too. And you wrap up your thoughts quicker. But if you want to have like a lengthier show with a guest, an hour is like the most optimal length for it.
Yeah, honestly, it's shocking to think that an hour is actually a small amount of time. When you look at it online, it feels like it's an hour. Like it feels,
yeah.
I'm going to listen to an hour, like a video on YouTube for an hour, unless like, it's a celebrity guest, but it's tough to commit to that. Like I always tell the story about how my mom was like, Alex, you making me listen to an hour? You know what I'm saying? Like it's daunting sometimes. So
yeah.
Man, we love y'all for that. We really appreciate y'all tapping in with us and tuning in to an hour of our show. We've seen like the analytics of y'all listen to the Ben Nigendorf podcast like 53 minutes through as an average listening time.
Yeah, and I think like the dead end time is just kind of like us like exchanging pleasantries at the end, like where the listener knows, okay, the thing is a wrap, like I can move on.
Exactly,
yeah.
Most definitely. So yeah, with that said, we can actually work towards wrapping up. I think we gave a lot of gems in this episode. And if you have any questions, feel free to give us a DM.
And also, I know this is the end of the show, which is actually a most important thing, is like the outro and the intro of the show.
Yeah.
You've never switched your intro and outro.
Kept it pretty consistent.
Consistent. Why is that?
Yeah.
And what do you like about the intro and outro?
This creating the brand around it. I think that's what people respect, is the consistency around it, so they have something to expect as the outro. But honestly, I think we need to work on it a little bit because we need more call to actions,
And that's what I also want to bring up as well, too, the call to actions.
Yeah, exactly. So I highly suggest having stronger call to actions. One thing that we need to work on, specifically me, that's something I can be accountable towards. I need to have more call to actions to make sure you guys like and subscribe and rate us on Apple and iTunes and rate us on Spotify as well, because they now have a rating system and they're getting charts and all that. So make sure you guys do that and suggest it to your audience.
Yes. Yeah. So those are the podcasting lessons so far. Hopefully we did not deter you from starting a show, but hopefully we motivated you and gave you a realistic picture and a framework of how to start a podcast.
Most definitely. Of course, make sure the business is registered, make sure that everything is right legally with your business as a podcast. And tip your bartender, tip your barber. Make sure you like it, share it if you think this was good and quality information. Take a picture of it with your iPhone or Android and share a screenshot on your stories. Let us know that it was dope content, because it really impacts us and helps us to grow the show. All right, y'all. We'll see you on the next one. The hustle is what you can control. So control your grind and control your life. I'm Alex.
And I'm Ono Sinde.
And that's the show, y'all. Peace.
Have a great week, everyone.